So I have a long story with a lot of moving parts, so bear with me. I think I will tell this story in the order of events as I found out about them, rather than how they chronologically occurred. To begin, I have this recurring dream that I've been having since middle school. I have it 1 or 2 times a year, but it's slowed down since I've gotten older. In the dream, I'm at home, but it isn't my house. It's a big 2 or 3 story home that's shaped like a U. I've never seen anything like it before. I go upstairs to my mom's room in this dream, and she's on the bed, seizing. My first thought is that she must be possessed. I call my brother in a panic and tell him that Mom is possessed. He just asks me if we need more bread or milk because he's grocery shopping. We fight back and forth, but he refuses to listen, and I eventually hang up and try to help my mom myself. Before I can do anything, she stops seizing and looks out the window. I run to the window that overlooks the pool in the middle of the U, and I see a spirit flying into or out of the pool. I don't hear anything, but I know his name is Chris, and then my mom is fine again. It's a weird dream to keep having, but I've never thought too much of it. Moving forward to when I was in college, there was a Ouija board that had been on the game shelf of my house for as long as I can remember. None of us had ever touched it or played it, but it's always been there. I asked if I could take it with me to college. I thought it would be fun for my friends and I to use. I've been very interested in the paranormal, but never really believed in it. I take it, and the first time I use it, I ask if it knows me. It says yes. Then I ask it how. It spells Mama. I disregard it. My friends and I use it several times after that. Nothing particularly interesting really happens in the hundreds of other uses. One night, a few years later, my family is all sitting in a hot tub late at night in late fall in our backyard. We were just looking at the stars, but my little brother suggested that we tell ghost stories. No one could come up with any, so we started talking about weird dreams and the meanings behind them instead. I offered to share mine, as I recently had one that I had had several times before. I tell this dream to my family, and my mom and dad turn their necks so quickly to look at each other I swear I heard them crack. I ask them what's wrong, and they say that Chris is just someone from their past. They act awfully strange for a bit before my mom says that she does actually have a ghost story. When my parents were teenagers and still dating, my mom bought a Ouija board, the same one that I took with me to college. She convinced my dad to use it with her, and they had fun asking it questions about their future and whatnot. They asked it several questions about their future, and specifically, if they'll ever have their own cars. It answers Grand Prix. They ask for the name of the ghost they're speaking to, and it says Christopher. They didn't really play with it again due to just lack of interest. Several months later, maybe years, after their first experience, my mom buys her first car. Lo and behold, it's a Pontiac Grand Prix. I think the fact that the Ouija board predicted that was a realization they had several months after the purchase. It could be chalked up to subconscious, but it's still a little weird. I will refer to my mom as M from here on out. Several months after the car, my parents are visiting friends in another state. They're there for a Super Bowl party, I think. They're out of snacks for the party, so my mom offers to drive to the store and get some. Now, my mom has always been a big fan of personalized license plates, so of course her Grand Prix had a license plate that said M's GP. She gets to the grocery store, and the bag boy helped her carry her groceries to her car. They're unloading them into the truck, and he sees her license plate. "Oh, is your name M?" "Yeah, it's my Grand Prix, why?" "My friend and I were playing with the Ouija board the other night, and it just kept saying, 'Where's M? Where's M?'" She didn't talk any longer with the bag boy, or exchange any kind of information. Now, to top things off, I'm working at my first job after college. I've been here for nearly 2 years, and only a few weeks ago did I realize the building I work in is 3 stories tall and shaped like a U. It is nearly identical to the one from my dreams, save for the fact that there's a courtyard instead of a pool in the center. I would love to hear any thoughts on this. I definitely feel like something is looking for my mom, and now going through me to find her. I don't know if it's worth noting, but my mom also seems to have a sort of sixth sense. She has dreams about people in strange rooms before they die. She's ran into someone in the grocery store and thought, he doesn't seem well, weeks before he was diagnosed with cancer, and was outwardly 100% fine and normal. And she has told me that a few times as a child she had been so angry with someone bullying her brother, she can't stop thinking about how much she hates them, and they've died shortly after. I was laying in bed last night around 3 a.m. on a call with my friend. My room had a lot of moonlight coming in because my curtains aren't big enough to fit the windows properly, so it was light enough for me to see everything around me. I'm on the call, and I see something out of the corner of my eye. I look over and I see a man on my ceiling with his feet on my walls, a hand on the ceiling, and the other hand extending downward toward the floor. Standing at about 5'8", thin frame and just pure black. He gets down and just stands in the corner of my room. He stayed there for about an hour before leaving. Come morning, I talked to my mom about what I saw. As it turns out, around the same time last night, she was awakened by her purse flying across the bedroom, which made a very loud thump. This shouldn't have happened because her purse was pushed back on a table against the wall, and her purse is fairly heavy. I didn't have much of a reaction because I often ignore these things to avoid giving them attention. I hadn't told my mother sooner because I felt uneasy about leaving the room. Through the night, my friend is having disturbing dreams involving small children and babies. However, this time, it's left some unsolved answers. Long story short, she had a dream about being led to a field by a little girl. In the field lay a blanket with 3 doll heads around it, and underneath, a dead baby. In the dream, she described it as being very realistic and can remember even attending the funeral. Today, she was telling her mother about it over Facebook Messenger by voice recording. This is prior to telling us friends in a group chat. She screen recorded and sent us what she had told her mother so we could hear the voice note. In the voice recording, you can clearly hear the cries of a baby twice, as if it's in the same room as her. My friend does have a child, however, old enough that his cries do not sound like that, and he was also sleeping at the time. The TV was on, however, in the next room, and you can make out that this is more distant. Besides, it was Good Morning Britain that was on, so the baby crying was irrelevant. The crying sounded like it was in the same room next to her, and is very clear and easy to make out. Has anyone experienced anything like this? We are just looking for answers to why we can all hear this on the voice recording note. This all happened last Friday when I was babysitting my nephew and niece. My nephew being 9 months old, and my niece being about 3.5 years old. For some personal context, I just turned 17, and my sister is 24, her husband is 25. They were obviously young when they started, but he makes good money doing what he does, and she usually stays home with the kids, so they were able to get into a house at their current age, which to me is great. Since they just got the house recently, they had been moving non-stop for almost a month. So I agreed I would watch the kids while the two of them went out on a much-deserved date night. They obviously took me up on the offer, and there I was, watching the kids on a Friday night. The night was going well. My nephew started falling asleep on the couch while we were watching Moana, so I decided that 8 was a good time to get him to bed. He was clearly drained and ready to sleep. Thankfully, he's always been a pretty good kid, and I got him to bed and tucked in without much of a fuss. I leave the kid's bedroom, and as I'm walking down the hallway, I hear my niece, whom we'll call Shannon, talking in the living room. My niece is a sweetheart, and in my opinion is adorable in every sense of the word. So I decided to stop in the hallway and listen to her talk to herself. As I'm listening, she starts going on about how this is mommy and that's daddy, and then explaining that I was her aunt and that the little boy that I just took to the bedroom was her brother. She's going on, telling seemingly no one about her family and who we are, in a fairly nonsensical manner, which is normal for a 3-year-old. After a few minutes, I come back in the room and she sees me. As soon as she sees me, she stops talking and stares at the floor. I laugh at her and ask her who she was talking to which she shyly replies, "No one." I get over to her, and I see that she's holding a framed picture in her hand and trying to hide it. At first I think nothing of it, maybe she just got a hold of the picture on the end table. But I know she shouldn't have it, and I guess that's probably why she's being evasive. I squat next to the chair she's in, and I ask her to give me the picture, so that she doesn't break it or possibly hurt herself. At first, she huffs and says that I'm going to get mad at her. Now, I've never gotten mad at her for pretty much anything since she's been born, so this statement was a surprise to me. I promised her that she was not in trouble, but in order to keep it that way we would need to put the picture back so that nothing happened to it. After a few moments, she gives it back to me and I turn to the end table to put it back, only to notice that the picture on the end table is still there. I turn back and ask her where she got the picture from, and she points to a shelf that's taller than I am. Sure enough, there's a spot that's wide open where a picture frame is supposed to be. I stared at her for a moment, trying to put 2 and 2 together, and just decided to ask her how she got the picture off the shelf. After I asked this, her face got angry and she looked like she was about to cry. Like, she didn't understand how I didn't know how she got the picture. I walked over to her and knelt down again, and once again tell her she's not in trouble, but she starts pouting aggressively, and says that he gave it to her. I look around the room jokingly, and of course there's no one there, so I turn back to her and say, "The only he here, Shannon, is your brother Bryce. So, did Bryce give you the picture?" I obviously knew that wasn't possible, so I wanted to see if she would tell me the truth, or if she was going to lie to me. She shook her head no and said it wasn't Bryce, so I asked her who he was that she was talking about. To this, she just stared at me angrily, kind of like she was asking, how the hell do you not know who he is? I tell her I'm sorry that I'm upsetting her, trying to get her to calm down and just explain it to me, but that I can't see anyone in the room. Then I ask once again who he is. She continues to get pissed off at me and refuses to tell me anything about whoever this he person is. After a few moments, she tells me that she wants to go to bed. I agree, and we go up to her bedroom and get her changed and get her into bed. She hops up onto her bed, and I lean down to tell her goodnight, and she tells me to get closer. When I do get closer, she whispers in my ear, "I can't tell you his name because he told me that he would get mad. I'm sorry." I pull back and stare at her, and she is dead serious. I was freaking out in my head, so I decided to just finish tucking her in, and then went to my sister's room to watch TV. I never told my sister because I didn't know how to say, "Hey, your daughter saw an invisible man and he told her not to tell me his name or else he would get mad at her." Plus, I doubted she would believe me. For me, the fact that she got a frame from a shelf that was over 5 foot high was proof enough that something happened. Hopefully nothing like this happens the next time I watch them. To start, let me tell you who I am. My name is Sierra, and I'm currently 24 years old. My boyfriend, Daniel, passed away around 4 months ago from an incredibly aggressive brain tumor, one that basically stole his life from him very quickly. Daniel and I had been friends since we were around 14, and we decided to start dating when I was 19, so about 5 years ago. He and I were very close from day one, and we were honestly planning our future together whenever he got the diagnosis. and was basically told that he had less than a year to live. Daniel took the diagnosis pretty hard, but overall managed to maintain his optimistic personality. He spent as much time with me as he could, and those days were some of the best memories I'll always cherish in my heart. After I lost him, I was an obvious wreck. I moved out of our apartment and in with my mother, something I didn't want to do, but I couldn't afford the apartment we had on my own with my job. I shut everyone out of my life for the first month, just wanting to be left alone, and left basically to decay at my own pace in my bedroom. I hardly ate, and would just shower once a week, and my only time out of my room was when I went to work. It was about 2 months ago that I started having these vivid dreams about Daniel. I remember a lot of them, honestly, because they mean so much to me. The first one I had was of me and him at a doctor's office. I remember the doctor telling me that I was pregnant and that it was going to be a boy, which doesn't make sense. If I just found out I was pregnant, they really wouldn't know the gender like that. I remember the look on Daniel's face after I was told I was pregnant. He had the look of pure joy and went in to hug me tightly. I could tell that he was crying on my shoulder, which really just melted my heart. Then I had the dream that he and I were getting married. It may sound stupid, but it wasn't a massive wedding in the dream. It was a courthouse wedding. I remember that there were around 5 people we knew in the courthouse with us, and I was so elated to be marrying the man I loved. There were a few more that I could cover, but honestly, typing this out kind of makes me want to cry. I would dream about him every night, and it was starting to affect my mental state. I was starting to think that maybe I could take my own life and be with him again, and that's what he was trying to show me. The last night I dreamt of him, I literally asked him before I went to bed. I sat up and said, "Daniel, is there any way for me to be with you? I just need you to tell me if I can be with you." After I asked, I just sat there in silence on my bed with my back against the wall, and eventually I dozed off. That night was the last dream I had about Daniel, and it was by far the strangest and the saddest. The dream took place at his funeral, but he was in the casket and also sitting next to me. I was the only person there at the church, and I was dressed in casual clothing, basically jeans and a t-shirt. I remember that I was just sitting there and sobbing in the dream, crying my eyes out with his arms wrapped around me, and just wishing I could be with him again. He gave me a tight hug and told me that he was sorry our time was so short. In the dream, I asked him again if I could just end it and be with him once more, but he told me that wasn't even an option. I asked him why not, and he told me that I still had too much left to accomplish in my life. He explained that he was sending me the dreams from the other side, and that he wanted me to see what we could have had. He said he didn't intend to hurt me, he thought it would make me happy to know what could have been, but he realized that it did hurt me. I told him that they made me happier than I had ever been, but it also hurt deeply because it couldn't happen anymore, to which he responded that it could happen, just not with him. I was so confused by this statement. I didn't want it to happen with anyone but him. Finally, he stood up and told me that he had to go, and that he couldn't send me any more dreams. I stood up and tried to run over to him, but my legs wouldn't move. No matter how much I struggled, they just stuck in place like I was cemented to the floor. He turned back and looked at me with his bright smile, and he told me he loved me, but I had to keep going for his sake. I then watched as he closed the casket and faded away. I remember waking up from this dream drenched in sweat and tears, and feeling like I was going to get physically ill. Unfortunately, that night was the last night I had any of these dreams. I still do have some dreams of him, but none that feel as real as those did. I firmly believe that Daniel was trying to show me the life we could have had he not passed away, and he honestly had the best intentions on doing so. He wanted me to know that he was going to be okay, and that honestly he was hurt just as bad by losing our future. I haven't moved on or started seeing anyone new yet, it's only been 4 months, but I know someday I'm going to have to, because that's what he would have wanted more than anything. Honestly, there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss him, and I wish he was here. But I'm also glad that I got to actually say goodbye one last time, even if it was just in my sleep. Hey there, friends. How's it going this afternoon? I hope you're doing well, and I hope you enjoyed this collection of ghost stories. That last one was more sad than it was creepy. I didn't mean to infer that one's creepy. I just had a ghost story that I needed to add there, so I apologize to the person if that was offensive. Please get a hold of me if you don't want that one there. I think it fits in with the rest of them being ghost stories, but yeah. It wasn't as creepy as the other ones. It was more just depressing and sad, and I'm very sorry for your loss on that. Anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy the video, please do hit that thumbs up button. Also, if you really liked it and you would like more content like this, please consider joining the Nevermore. To join the Nevermore, all you have to do is hit that subscribe button and the bell icon next to it to be notified of every video that I post, and I post a lot. Being part of the Nevermore gives you full access to things like my Twitter, Patreon, subreddit, Facebook, and a page where you can submit a story to me if you have one that you'd like me to read. You do have full access to these without joining the Nevermore, but joining the Nevermore makes accessing them 1,000 times more fun. All that said, friends, I hope you have a beautiful day, and I hope you're doing well out there. Just know that I love every single one of you, and I'll see you on the next video. But until then, sleep well.